Welcome to Code Jogging. Today we are going to look at TextField components in Compose UI. The previous video we looked at button in Compose UI and we were able to customize it to suit how we want it to look like. So in this video we are going to look at the TextField. And talking about the TextField, I'm talking about an area of receiving user inputs in your app. For example, if you want to design a login page or a registration page or a search bar, anything that you want to do in your app that you want to receive a user input, you want the user to enter something, then you have to use the TextField. So in this video we are going to look at how to implement it in our app. Now, looking at the test component, from our previous video, anytime you call a component, it comes with a basic parameters that needs to be filled, or at times it doesn't need you to even enter anything. For example, if you use the image gives you the painter and then the content description that asks you to provide additional information. But if you look at button, straightforward, just gives you the on click and then also the callback or the content callback function, where you can also add your child element to the button. In the TextField, the same thing applies to. So we call the TextField, yes, and then it's now asking us what we want to do. So the first one is the value. What value do you want to show in our TextField? And on value change, if the value changes, what are we going to do? So this one receives, it can also receive a string, and it can also receive a text value, okay, or text view value. So here we can give it let's say code jogging, then this one is a callback function. Okay, we are still having a syntax error. Anytime you are writing a code and then you are having a syntax error, or your code is being underlined with red color, put the cursor on it. It will then tell you what you are missing. It's saying that this material API is experimental and is likely to change or to be removed in the future. So we are still testing the TextField. So we then have to opt in for experimental. Yes, now it's gone. So we've added it to our function. Let's run our code and then see the output. Okay, so now we have our TextField here. We can type, but nothing happened. We are still showing our TextField here. It means that anytime the user types something or click on this one, we are not listening to the change. Okay, so what we can do, instead of providing a static value here, we are now going to assign to a value. Let's say test equals this. Okay, then we call the test here. But we will still have the same issue. When the user inputs anything or click on the keyboard or type anything here, the changes won't affect the TextField here, because we are still providing a static data. So for us to provide a dynamic data, that's when the user make changes to our TextField, we are supposed to get the current data and then show it in our TextField. So we can do that by calling by remember, then it's a function, then you have to import it. What we are doing here is we are calling a state or a recomposition. We'll be doing a video about that in our subsequent videos. Okay, so in case you don't understand it, I will explain it furthermore in either the next video or the subsequent videos, where we'll be handling the state and then recomposition in Compose UI. So here what I want you to understand is we are declaring a variable that will be observable, or it will be dynamic. Wherever we assign to it, it will automatically change the value. That we don't need to call the variable again. Okay, so then we call the mutable state of. Okay, and what value is it receiving? Then test field value, no, test field value, yes, then it accepts one parameter. Okay, so we need to import one thing, yes. And when you are declaring a variable in Kotlin in a use var, it means that the variable becomes a constant. We can't change it at the runtime. So for us to change it at the runtime, then we have to change it to var. Then we will call our test here and then assign it to whatever the user will enter. So that's the callback, or let's say user inputs. Okay, so we assign it to the user inputs here. And now because we've changed the text from being a constant to a variable, or to be a variable here, then we have to change it to we have to import the variable 2 for the mutable state. So now we've done that. So now let's run our code and then see the output. Okay, so now we have nothing to show, but as soon as we start typing, then we can now see the changes here. Yes, so it means that now we can capture the user input in our app. The next step we are going to look at is adding a label and then a placeholder. Why do you need a label? For example, you can have more than one test field on a scene or in an activity or on a page. For example, let's look at login. So we are going to look at login as an example. So you need to provide a column. You can watch from our previous video where we talked about layout groups. Okay, so modifier, then we need to import it. We need to import our modifier. Yes, so now let's move the test field into the column, and then let's copy this one, and then let's paste it and change this one to username, and then let's copy it and then change this one to password. Okay, so let's change the test to username, and then let's change here to password. Let's add spaces between the two, so we bring the spacer and then add the modifier height. So 10.dp. okay, 10.dp, and then let's run it and then see the output. Yes, so let's center vertically align center, and then vertically align center, and then horizontally center. Okay, so let's center our fields. Okay, but here it will be very difficult for our users to know which one is the username and then which one is the password field. Okay, so we need to add a label, and a label is a callback function. So we call a label, okay, then we add our test view to it. So we add our test to it. Let's import it. Then we add username or enter username, and then we will do the same thing for the password. So enter password. So now let's run our code and then see the output. Yes, now users can read the text fields. So this one is a label, and then this one is a label too. But when you click on it, you see that the label is still showing. Okay, so now what we are going to look at is placeholder. Why do you need a placeholder? Maybe there are some additional information you need to show to the user before they perform a specific task. For example, we want their username to begin with @ okay, and then the password should contain at least, let's say, 4. We are not going to look at the validation here. We are going to look at giving a hint to the user through the text field. So we can then call a placeholder, which is a callback. Then let's copy our text field, and then let's say @username, and then we can have placeholder here. Then we call this one must be strong password. So here it's not going to show when we launch our app until the user decides to click inside the text field. Then this message will then display to the user that whatever you are going to do inside this text field, these are the constraints, these are the gist or a hint we want to give it to you before you start entering any data in our text field. Other than that, the user will spend their time entering data that you are not expecting them to do, and then at the end you tell them invalid input, or this kind of users will stop using your app. So for us to give them a hint before they perform a task in our app, we have to use the placeholder, which is a good way of improving your user experience. Okay, so now let's run it. That's good. So let's click inside it. Now we can see @username. Okay, let's click outside it. Now it's gone. Now password must be strong. Okay, so the next aspect we are going to look at is let me separate the two. Let me separate this one. Is the keyboard option. Why do you need a keyboard option? Now you can realize that here, if the person is entering a mail here, let me add one column to it, and then let's say, let me copy this one so that we can add enough space to it, and then let's make this one email. Okay, must be a valid email. Sorry, must be a valid email. Okay, so now we have 3 text fields here. Okay, and also let's add this one to it, phone number. Yes, so that we can look at the various types of enter phone number, because it must be a valid phone number. Okay, so now let's run our code, and we have to come to the top here, and also give it a unique field. So here will be the email address, and then here will be phone number. Okay, so let's go to the email, then update it. Here should be email, and then here should be email. Okay, phone number, let's go to the last one. Here should be phone number, and then here should be phone number. Now let's run our code and then see the output. Okay, so now we have our username, email, and then the phone number, password. Now when you click inside it, we can type it, it makes sense. But when we click inside the email, we still have the same. So if you want to add the @ sign, then you have to go to the numbers and then select the @ sign. Okay, and if we click on the phone number, this one's supposed to change phone number keypad, but it's not. So we have to switch the number before we can add phone numbers. And the same thing applies to, let's add a scroll to it so that we can scroll. So vertical scroll, remember scroll states, yes. So now let's run it again. So yes, so now we have the phone number here. We can also, let me see, phone number. Okay, so I'll make it with let's find a way of fill max width, and let's give it a height. Let's give it 100 dp. Okay, now password we can then type, but we want the password to be toggle. It means that when the user is typing, we want to show the dot, and we give the user the privilege to switch or toggle the visibility, whether to view the password he or she has typed. So now that's what we are going to look at. So first, let's start from the email. So we go to the email field, then we add the keyboard option. Okay, then we call the keyboard option, that gives us the keyboard type. So it means the keyboard type, then it gives us these options. Okay, so we select the email. Okay, so now let's run the code and then click inside the email. Once we click inside the email, we are supposed to see the @ sign here. Okay, and most of the times when the user starts typing, the IntelliSense also will suggest a mail to the user. So let's click inside it, and now we are now seeing the @ sign here. We've told our app that whenever the user click inside this text field, we are allowing the user to enter a mail. So make the keyboard available for the user to enter the email. And the keyboard realized, okay, then I have to add @ sign to it so that it will be very easy for you to enter your email. So let's do the same thing for the phone number. Okay, so the phone number, we go to the phone number side, then we will type keyboard option equals keyboard options, then we have the keyboard type, that is the keyboard type, and then we select number. Let me type keyboard type, yes, or we can select phone or we can select number. So let's select phone. Okay, so we have phone and then we have the phone number. We will test the two to see which one we should rather use. So we click inside the phone. Now you can see that we have the chance to enter our phone number here. Instead of showing the ABCD, it's rather giving us the chance to enter our phone number. So you can also switch to number, and then you will see that some of the keys here won't be visible. So once you click inside, now you see that it's not, though it will still accept the phone number, but this one is not giving us the chance to enter the plus in case the person is supposed to enter an international number. Then here it won't give the user the chance to enter the plus. Okay, so you have to use the phone. Okay, so then the next step we are going to look at is the password. Okay, so the password step. Now when you click inside it, we can type, but we are still seeing the test. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to look at the visual transformation. Okay, so we are going to look at the visual transformation. That's where we can decide whether the data the user is going to input in this text field must be in a plain text, or we should rather hide it. So we are looking at the visibility of the data the user is going to input in the selected text field. So in our password text field, we are going to restrict the user from seeing wherever he or she is going to enter. So then we call the visual transformation. Then we change it to password transformation. Okay, so now we are now going to hide whatever password the user will enter in our app. Okay, so now let's enter something now. Very good. Now you can see that we are not showing the user inputs in a plain text form, but it's now been hidden. Okay, so what if we want the user to toggle the visibility? The user should be able to view it and also hide it. Okay, this one leads to adding an icon to our text field. We have two ways of adding icons to our text field. You can add an icon at the beginning of our text. That's phone number. You can show a call or any icon. And then the email, we can show the envelope before the enter text, and then the username, we can even show an avatar. So for us to add an icon in front of or before our label, then we have to call the leading. So for us to achieve that, then you have to call the leading icon. Okay, yes, so it's a callback function. Once we call the leading icon, then we can add the image you want to use. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are rather going to use an icon. Okay, so we are going to use the image vector, and then we are going to use icons dot default dot, we are working on the mail, so email. Okay, so we are having an error here. Let's put the cursor on it and find out the error. Okay, it's saying that we don't have a content description. Okay, which you don't need it. Okay, or we can make it an icon. Okay, so now let's run our project and then see the output. Yes, now you can see that we are now showing an icon before our label and then the placeholder. Okay, so we can do the same thing for phone number, and then we change it to phone. Okay, and then we can do the same thing for user, and then we can change it to account circle, and then we can do the same thing for our password. We can use lock. So now let's run our code and then see the output. Okay, so now you can see that we are now having icons before our labels or in front of our labels. So now what we are going to look at it is what we are going to do next is adding an icon after our label. For example, we are going to look at the password. Okay, so the password, the user should be able to toggle it when it comes to viewing it. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. We are going to add the trailing icon, or yeah, we are going to add the trailing icon. So let's type the trailing icon, and then it's a callback function, so we call this one But what we are going to do is we have to declare a variable that will hold a state, and it should be a boolean that will give us the option to know that whether the user has clicked on the button to show the inputs in the plain text, or it wants to hide it. Okay, so now we will come here and then make it is password visible. So default is it should be true, because you don't want the user to see whatever he or she is going to enter. So then we come here, then we make it if true, then we are going to hide it, and then if it's false, then we are going to make the visual transformation none. Okay, yes. So if it's true, then we are going to hide it, and if it's false, then we are going to display. So let's run our code and then see the variable we declare is working. So now let's scroll and then try and then type something in our password. Yes, it's working. So let's change it to false and then find out if it will still hide it or to show the plain text. Okay, so now let's run it again and then type. Let me run the app again. I think it didn't update it. Okay, so now let me type now. Yes, now we can. So what we are going to do here is we are going to toggle this when the user click on the visibility icon in our text field. So for us to do that, we have to call it the trailing icon, and then we are now going to decide the image we are going to use. So image equal if it's password visible. If it's password visible, then we are going to show the hide icon, or if password is visible, then we are going to show the view icon. So we are going to call the icons dot field dot visibility. Yes, we are not having this one because we don't have the material 3 or the material icons, that the extended icons, okay, in our project. So we can do that by going to the Gradle and then let's import this one. So we update our Gradle and then we come back to our visibility. So now we can then import it. Else then icons dot fill dot visibility off. Okay, so now this is what we are going to do in our training. So we've done the condition here. So the next step is we have to call the icon button, which we've talked about it in our previous video, and then we display icon. So the icon, then we show this one visibility, that's the visibility. Okay, then here will be the image vector. So we will have image value here that we've declared here. Okay, so with this one we are going to toggle the user password inputs. Okay, so first let's run this one before we look at the visibility action. So let's run it and then see the output. Okay, so now let's go to the password. Now we have it here. So okay, then this one is hidden. Let me see. Okay, so we can hide it. So now this is what we are going to do. So we should set this one, we can make it this equal this. So it means that we are making sure that wherever the value is, if it is true, make it false, and if it is false, make it true when the user clicks on this one. So let's click on it, and then let's run it. Okay, so now let's scroll to the password and then type. So you can then click on it, and then you can see that now we've toggled it. So view and then to view. Okay, so default, we need to turn this one off. So it's password reversible true. The boolean, it depends on how you want. You can even make it default false, and then as far as the user click on it, it keeps on toggling, then it's okay. Okay, so now let's check our input again. Yes, so now it's not showing. Okay, now we are showing it. Okay, so this is what we wanted to discuss in this video: the use of the TextField component to capture user input and also advance the UI. For example, when you are accepting email, you don't need to show the raw keyboard. You need to also make the keyboard suit the TextField input. For example, phone numbers, you can't show the alphabet for the user to go and then switch to phone numbers before the user can enter the phone number. We have to make the keyboard match the request we are demanding from the user. So if you are asking the user to enter a phone number, then we have to make the keyboard shows only numbers so that it will be fast for the user to finish the input. Okay, now this brings us to the end of this video. In case you have any questions, you can leave it at the comment section, and then we will respond to it as soon as possible. And in case you have any suggestions that can help us to improve on this channel and then make our community safe, and then also helps the new beginners in coding find our resources reliable, you can email us through the email provided on the channel, and then once we receive it, we will respond to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching this video. See you in our next video. Bye bye.